So we are back with Premier League predictions. They're coming at us thick and fast, but we keep moving, try and keep pace with the Premier League. Do want to apologise if my voice sounds a bit rough. Just came back from the Chelsea Forest match, and yeah, I was shouting quite a bit, so apologies for that. But we move, had a good time, so it doesn't really matter. As we usually do, we're going to take a look back at the predictions I made for Game Week 18. Spoiler alert, they were terrible. I had a stinker, and I also had a stinker in FPL. So let's hope the Game Week 19 I can do a bit better. I say my predictions were shocking. I mostly got the right outcome. It's just the scores I predicted, they were quite a bit off. But we're going to start with Friday's fixtures and West Ham versus Brentford. And I predicted 2-1 to Brentford. It's actually 2-0, so they did better than I expected. West Ham were very ineffective against Brentford, with Tony once again on the score sheet. Now this was a home match, so that's quite embarrassing. West Ham did have more of the ball and dominated Brentford in most places. They just could not net a goal for the lives of them. It wasn't good to watch, I'm not going to lie. And then we move on to Liverpool versus Leicester. I predicted 2-0 to Liverpool. It's actually 2-1. And this was a bit of a crazy one, as Liverpool beat Leicester 2-1 despite no Liverpool players scoring a goal. Unfortunately for the Foxes, their summer signing Wout Faes bundled 2 balls into his own net. But hey, he's more accurate than Nunez. And then we move on to the Saturday matches, and we start with Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Manchester United. Now I thought Manchester United would dominate Wolves 3-0, but they only managed to grind out a 1-0 win. And Rashford was left out of the 11 due to disciplinary reasons, and that really showed in Manchester United's performance. But after he came on at half time, he showed why he should be starting and scored the only goal to give United all 3 points. Now it's fair enough, for disciplinary reasons you've got to have discipline over the squad, but he still came on and still proved that he is one of their best players at the moment, so fair play. And then move on to Bournemouth versus Crystal Palace. Now I predicted 1-0 to Bournemouth. It was actually 2-0 to Crystal Palace. And my god, Palace looked a lot better than this poor Bournemouth performance, with Elise Sabre finding for both goals. He's a very good player, and I would not be surprised if he gets a bigger move in the summer. But yeah, Bournemouth did not look great in this match. It was like watching a different side play. They just looked so poor. And then move on to Fulham versus Southampton. I predicted 3-1 to Fulham. It was actually 2-1. It could have been 3-1 if Mitrovic scored his penalty, but there was another own goal this week as Ward-Prowse netted, but managed to score on the other end to rectify his mistake. As I said, Mitrovic missed a penalty in the dying minutes, but by that time Fulham had already won, so it wasn't really make or break. Then move on to Man City versus Everton. Again, I thought the Manchester side would dominate their opponents, but they were pegged back. I predicted 3-1, it was actually 1-1. This is a very shocking draw for Man City, as they could not break Everton down as much as expected, especially at the Etihad as well. City missed their chance to close the gap between Arsenal, while this point could prove vital for Everton come the end of the season. They're struggling at the moment, and they need all the points they can get. Then move on to Newcastle United versus Leeds United, and I predicted 3-1, it was actually 0-0 again. Another shocking draw. Almiron didn't score either, which was very shocking. Like, that man's been on fire recently. I'm surprised he didn't score, to be honest. Leeds held out well to get a draw at St James's Park, and we even saw 3 yellow cards in the dying minutes, which was pretty mental, but Newcastle have got to do better if they want to get in the Champions League next season. Then move on to Brighton and Hove Albion versus Arsenal. I predicted 2-1 to Arsenal, it was actually 4-2. Yeah, I predicted this would be a thriller, and it was. Arsenal went 7 points clear and are really showing their chances of winning the league here. Mitoma was brilliant for Brighton and was unfortunate to have a goal chalked off, but he played some brilliant football for them. And move on to Tottenham versus Aston Villa. I predicted 3-2 to Tottenham. It was actually 2-0 to Villa. Tottenham were awful, and it looked like they had zero desire to win this match. Kane's ball was cleared off the line, and that was about the only attacking move they really made. They never really challenged Villa's goal, but hey, at least Spence saw some game time. And finally, Nottingham Forest versus Chelsea. Now, I predicted a 1-0 Forest win. It was actually 1-0. I can't really complain, because Forest played much better than we've seen them recently, and definitely against Manchester United. And we were very unlucky to not claim all 3 points, really. We had some brilliant chances saved or blocked or hitting the bar. So yeah, we go again. Some team we've got. So yeah, those were my reactions to my Game Week 18 predictions. As you see, I didn't do well at all. So hopefully I can do better this week. We've got some clashes coming up, some midweek clashes, which I'm looking forward to, so let's jump into those. So yeah, for most of these teams, it'll be their first clash in 2023, and we're going to start with Brentford versus Liverpool. Now, Brentford beat West Ham in their own backyard, and we're looking to cause another upset this season. Obviously, they beat Man City before the break, so they'll be looking to do that here against Liverpool. Liverpool beat Leicester without scoring a goal, but looked somewhat overwhelmed by the Foxes at points, and Leicester actually cut through their defence multiple times. They just couldn't find the back of the net. Unfortunately for the Bees though, it's looking like they'll be missing out on Ivan Toney, who is their leading goal scorer. It looks like he'll be missing out on a suspected knee injury, which is very unfortunate for him, but with the betting charges that have been laid against him, it might be the right time for him to be injured. I'm going to say 2-1 to Liverpool. Unfortunately for the Bees, a lack of Toney will seriously diminish their firepower, but that's not to say they don't have a goal scorer. They do. They've got quite a few players who can score goals. It's just Toney was their leading goal scorer, so it's obviously going to be a big miss for them. Brentford will give Liverpool a tough match, there's no doubt about that, but Klopp's side should be able to overcome them. This could possibly be Gakpo's first game as well, although he hasn't had a lot of time with the squad, but he will be match fit from his time in the Netherlands, so it'll be interesting to see. It's unfortunate timing for the Bees, but Liverpool are a tough side to break down, but that injury has really come at a tough time for them, so, you know, 2-1 would be a pretty good result, I think, without their leading goal scorer. And then move on to the Tuesday clashes, and we start with Arsenal versus Newcastle United. Now this will be a huge clash, with Arsenal topping the league and Newcastle looking like challengers for the top spot as well, which is quite crazy to think. If any side were to cause Arsenal problems and put a blemish on their record this season, it would have to be this Newcastle side. Arsenal will have the advantage here though, as they host the Magpies in London. Newcastle will have to play far better than they did against Leeds, but I do have faith in them. Newcastle have kept the most clean sheets this season, but I can't see them keeping one here, whereas Arsenal are a brilliant attacking side. I'm going to say 2-1 to Arsenal. Although I'd like to see Newcastle beat Arsenal, I just can't really see that happening. I am sure this will be a good top of the table clash, with both teams playing some brilliant football at the moment, and it could honestly go either way, but I think the home atmosphere will give Arsenal the edge here, although they did draw to Southampton and we never saw that coming, so you never know, Newcastle could cause a big upset. The scenes would be mental if it happened. I think Arsenal have this one in the bag. And then we've got Everton versus Brighton and Hove Albion. Everton just don't get a break as they host another difficult opponent in Brighton. This will be another tough match for Everton as Brighton are playing some really good football this season. And when they're in flow, they're a really tough side to beat. Everton have had good moments, but overall they're not the best side this season, especially when compared to Brighton. The goofing quality is massive. Everton did really well to get a draw against City, but it is sort of like the most Everton thing to happen, you know. Lose points to Wolves, but draw against Man City. But Brighton can't really complain with their performance against Arsenal despite losing, because they played some really good football. I'm going to say 3-1 to Brighton. With it being at Goodison, I think Everton will score a goal, but I cannot see them winning really. As I said, Brighton are a tough side to face, home or away. And Matoma is a really good player to watch, as he's been playing some brilliant football. He played it brilliant in the World Cup, and he's been playing brilliant for Brighton as well. So he's definitely a player to watch. He put in a really good shift against Arsenal, and it's a shame he didn't grab 2 goals, but hey, Brighton have a good chance of making European football come the end of the season, and I do think they'll beat Everton here. It shouldn't be too hard for them, because they're just levels above Everton, really. Sorry Evertonians. And then move on to Leicester City versus Fulham. Now this will be an interesting clash, with these two teams being pretty evenly matched on paper in my opinion, especially when they're at full strength. I do say that because Leicester are having some injury problems at the moment, with big players like Maddison and Daka, among others, currently out. Maddison's injury is still not fully known, as it's a knee injury, but he is expected to be out for this clash. Hopefully he's out for the Forest clash as well. That's what, in like 3 weeks time or something, so there's a good chance he'll be fit for that. Fulham have been luckier in the injury department, are currently sitting higher than Leicester as well in the league. Either side could take it, but I'd say that Leicester are at a disadvantage with the amount of players they have out, especially their talisman. I'm going to say 2-1 to Fulham. I am backing Fulham in this clash, as they're looking better than Leicester and not dealing with as many injuries. Fulham have also played really well this season and will give Leicester a really good game, but Ward isn't looking as good as he was pre-World Cup, and Fulham will cause him problems for sure. Leicester are good on the attack, as we saw against Liverpool, but they do need to be more clinical if they want to win these games. I think Fulham should just be able to do it. Then move on to Manchester United versus Bournemouth. Yes, Manchester United had a really good run of fixtures recently, and Bournemouth is another one of those. United are flying high this season, making a great argument for a return to Champions League football next season. They host a Bournemouth side that are slowly slipping down the table and haven't scored in their last 3 matches. United are playing some really good football at the moment, but did have trouble in breaking down Wolves, but still managed to get all 3 points, and shouldn't have problems against Bournemouth if Rashford doesn't oversleep. Bournemouth had a good campaign before the World Cup, but since football has returned, it hasn't been great for them, and I think those woes will continue. I'm going to say 3-0 to United. Should Rashford return to the starting lineup, he'll have another good game, and I can see him causing Bournemouth problems all night. Bournemouth have looked quite lacklustre in their recent matches, and really need to step up the game if they want to survive this season. I don't see United having much problems with Bournemouth, much like their match against Forest, So get ready for posts gushing about their players afterwards. I mean, we saw people calling Casemiro the best CDM in the league when they beat Forest. Where are those posts when they beat Wolves? You know? And then move on to the Wednesday clashes, and we've got Southampton versus Nottingham Forest. A proper relegation scrap this, as Forest travel to St Mary's. Whoa. These two teams are struggling in the league at the moment, and I'd argue that Southampton are worse off than Forest at the moment. And I'd honestly say they're nailed on for relegation if their form continues. Forest have been struggling in adapting to the league that they've not been in 23 years, but they're getting into it, and you can really see progression through each of their matches. These two teams are pretty evenly matched at the moment, so it should be a good game of football. I'm going to back my boys and say 2-1. With the way Forest have been playing recently, I can only see one result, and that's a Forest win. When watching the recent Forest matches, Chelsea, United, despite not getting the results we would have wanted, we've looked really good. Southampton, on the other hand, haven't looked that good in the recent matches I've seen, though they have been against some tough opponents as well. Despite it being an away game, I do back Forest to win this one. We'd have to watch out for James Ward-Prowse, as he is their best player by a mile, but if we could keep him and Shadams quiet, we'll be alright. I also think it'd be a great game to introduce Scarpa and see what kind of impact he can make on a game, because he's looked like a brilliant player, and I just want to see him playing football, man. But yeah, I think Forest should be able to do this. I mean, if we do win, it'll be great, because we've only scored one away goal this season, as Amazon commentators love to remind us against Manchester United. So if we can score another one or two, it'll be beautiful. And then move on to Leeds United versus West Ham United. Leeds United host a struggling West Ham side, and I did honestly not see that. If you look back at my start of the season predictions, I would not have seen West Ham struggling like they are now. I say that like Leeds are way above West Ham, though they're not. They're 14th, and they could still be dragged into a relegation scrap come the end of the season if they don't stop picking up wins. So this could be a vital match come the end of the season. West Ham have had some of their players return from injury and will be looking to solve their goal scoring woes. And you know, they may dip into the market this winter for another goal scorer, we don't know. The discourse around Moyes has grown after their recent results, as he can't seem to get West Ham winning, with a reported list being drawn up of possible replacements. I'm going to say 2-0 to Leeds. I still see West Ham's woes continuing, especially Elland Road. This Leeds side plays some great football on occasion and can cause teams problems. I mean, we saw that against Newcastle. They caused them quite a few problems and they just couldn't score a goal. And I'd say Newcastle are better than West Ham at the moment. And I think they'll definitely cause problems for West Ham. These Hammers are in trouble this season, and so is Moyes, I think. I think if he gets results in Europe, he'll stay till the end of the season, but if he doesn't get results in Europe or the league, it's bye-bye Moyes. And then we move on to Aston Villa versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. Yes, this is the new manager derby, as Emery's Villa take on Lopetegui's Wolves in this Midlands clash. Both managers have secured their first wins of their tenure. I'll be looking to continue that run. Wolves still find themselves in the relegation zone, with Villa sitting in 12th, relatively out of danger for the moment. Villa also look the better side on paper and have scored 9 more goals than Wolves this season. Yeah, Wolves have really not been good at scoring goals like that. They've been worse than Forest, and that's saying something. Villa Park will be roaring for this match after such a performance in London against Tottenham. I think Villa can play some really good football, and it looks like they'll do that under Emery. The way he's set up this Villa side is very, very nice. It's much better than when they were playing under Gerrard. Yeah, the difference of both teams under their managers is noticeable, and this will be a good clash to watch. And it could be one of the deciding matches for Wolves' season. I think Wolves will look to make it difficult, like they did against United, but they were without Rashford, so did they really make it difficult? I'm not too sure. But being away at Villa Park, it'll be much harder for that to come off. I do think Wolves will make it difficult for Villa. Well, they'll definitely try, but I do think Villa are the better side in this clash. And then we move on to Crystal Palace versus Tottenham Hotspur. Before their win over Bournemouth, Palace didn't really look threatening. And while yes, it is Bournemouth, it's still a big win for them, and it shows that they can score goals and they can win matches. Olise was a big part of that, and if he steps up again, he should be a big part of this match too. Tottenham will really want to put their abysmal loss to Villa behind them and get back to winning ways. Tottenham fans are really unhappy with the ownership at the moment, and this will have only reinforced that unhappiness. This should be a match Tottenham win if they want to keep their European hopes alive for next season, depending how well they do in the Champions League. They're definitely going to want to play Champions League football again, so they really need to step up their game. I'm going to say 1-0. Palace will make this London derby tough for Tottenham, and the atmosphere should be amazing at Selhurst Park. If Spurs play at the level they did against Villa, they will find it tough to break down Palace, as I think Palace are a better side than Villa as well. The Eagles aren't a bad side, and while they struggle to be effective towards the break in the league, you know, struggling to score against Forest, for example, They've begun to find the net again. Tottenham need to be more attacking in this clash if they want all 3 points, but I don't know if they have it in them, because it looks like Kulusevski's injured again, which is not great for them, because he's a very vital player for them. So yeah, big L for the Tottenham boys, but what's new? And then we move on to the penultimate clash. This is a Thursday night match between Chelsea and Manchester City. Chelsea dropped points to the mighty Nottingham Forest, and City dropped points to Everton. But unfortunately for the Blues, City's have Haaland, who will cause all kind of problems for Chelsea's defence. I mean, we saw the problems Awoniyi caused for Koulibaly, so Chelsea under Potter have not looked great and still find themselves in 8th place, a big jump from the Champions League positions they were in last season. I'm really not sure why they sacked Tuchel in retrospect. Yes, he didn't get some results, but he took them to the Champions League. And Potter, I don't know if Potter has it in him to do that. Now, I like Potter, I think he's a great guy, but yeah, I'm not sure if he's cut out to manage this Chelsea side. But then again, it is like years of other managers, players, and you know, it's a turbulent period for Chelsea at the moment. But City haven't been at their best this season either, and they'd be top of the league at the moment, but Arsenal are playing much better than them. Both teams have dropped silly points this season. I think City have dropped more of the silly points, especially against like fucking Everton. Like, what's going on there? But with the way Chelsea have been playing, Man City won't be too troubled at Stamford Bridge. I'm going to say 3-1 to City. I can't see City being troubled, as I've said. Like, I don't think this Chelsea side poses much of a threat to Man City. I'm sure Chelsea will score. I mean, it's Stamford Bridge. They love scoring there, but this City side is a step above. Chelsea weren't the best team against Forest, and this is a City side that is insane. So it's not looking good for Chelsea in this clash. But moving on from that clash, we've got another Thursday night clash, which is Fulham versus Chelsea. Now, this is the final match of Game Week 19, a week later, but it was a rescheduled match from Game Week 7, I believe. Chelsea travelled to Craven Cottage for another London derby. If my prediction of Chelsea versus City was correct, Chelsea will be looking to get back to winning ways before it's too late. As I said, I've seen calls for Potter to go, but I've also seen calls for him to stay and just give him time, like Arsenal did with Mikel Arteta. So it could be make or break for his career these next few games. Fulham have been playing some good football this season and look to shake off the yo-yo club yoke as they try to establish themselves in the Premier League, and so far they've done a good job in doing that. I even think they'll be successful in staying up this season. Mitrovic has been playing well as well, despite that penalty miss against Southampton, but again, he didn't really need to score that, but my FPL would have liked if he did. I'm going to say 2-1 to Chelsea. I think this will be a big match for Chelsea, and it'll see them grab a much needed win. But it's definitely going to be a tough match. Fulham aren't a pushover, and especially at Craven Cottage, they've caused some shocks this season. So I wouldn't underestimate them. But I do think Chelsea would just be able to grab a win here, probably by a whisker. Those would be my Game Week 19 predictions. Hopefully I do better than I did last week. Hopefully we can get back to winning ways on the predictions. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good week of football. I've been O2GT. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have any predictions, please leave them below. Even if I don't reply to the comment, I do read them. And yeah. See you guys later. Peace.